Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for joining us for our McKinsey webinar here for our pre-MBA networking festival. We have two people who know everything anyone would ever want to know about recruiting MBAs at McKinsey and Company. Obviously, this is one of the most coveted jobs in all of MBA land. And we're going to talk about what McKinsey looks for. And we're going to really have like two terrific perspectives. One from a class of 2019 Wharton MBA, who's currently an associate at McKinsey in the New York office, Aaron McKee. And then, of course, Judith Katz, the manager of recruiting operations. Well, welcome, both of you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us.
So let's get right to it, like, what are you really looking for in an MBA intern? Because that's the first step, right? I mean, I imagine that most full-time MBA hires at McKinsey, not all, probably, but many of them. Actually, Aaron, you weren't, interestingly enough, when we'll get into that. But in general, what do you look for in an MBA intern? And since we're in the pandemic, I'm imagining that you can't see people in person anymore.
Sure, I'm happy to chime in here. So first and foremost, we think that the MBA program that you're all about to enter really sets you up for success in our process. So what we're really looking for are first and foremost problem-solving capabilities. And what I mean by that is, the ability to form hypotheses, do some data analysis, really glean insights from that data, and draw those conclusions, and inevitably, make some recommendations. So those are the sorts of things that we're looking for. We love folks who are intellectually curious, who ask really thoughtful questions. And then, of course, very much so, since we're client-facing, really looking for folks that have a little bit of those softer skills. So what that means to us is, really strong leadership capabilities, thought partners, collaborations, ability to work with different stakeholders in a team setting. Humility is really, really important, and being an effective communicator. We're also increasingly looking for folks that have more of a technical profile and interest in data analytics. So we're hearing from our clients that they want this kind of expertise or skill set more so. So we're starting to think about that a little bit more in our talent pool. It's really cliche, I totally get it, but our website is a wealth of information. We really value ourselves on being transparent. And so everything that I've just shared with you and probably a lot more is on our website. So we highly encourage you to check that out too.
So, of course, a key part of evaluating the person's ability to think through a problem is the so-called case interview. Aaron, when you went through, what was it like?
The case interview, it seems like so long ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. It's a component that we're going to evaluate you on. Think of it as discussing a problem that reflects the type of challenge that McKinsey would typically tackle. It might actually even be a pared down version of an actual engagement that McKinsey has taken on with a client. Case interviews will aim to help you demonstrate your problem-solving skills, your comfort with numbers, your general ability to have a conversation with the person sitting across from you. So my advice to candidates, and something that I received as advice from others ahead of me, was treat the conversation like a conversation, treat it like a dialogue, not just an interview or presentation. I think that makes the case interview feel that much more natural. Think about organizing your thoughts. Ask questions during the case interview wherever you might need clarification. Walk your interviewer through your approach, your calculations, the implications of what you're doing. Again, make it a conversation and a dialogue. One thing to remember about the interview process, and I think Judith might speak to this a little bit later as well, the interview overall is about 40 to 15 minutes, maybe a little longer than that. There's a case interview component, of course, but also the personal experience interview, the PEI. I always advise candidates, don't forget about the PEI. It is not there to fill time. It is an extremely important portion of McKinsey's evaluation of you as a candidate. So make sure that you're thinking of the personal experience interview when you're preparing for your actual interview day with McKinsey. We see a lot of candidates that index a lot on case prep, but the PEI is equally as important.
Huh. Can you tell us more about the PEI?
Sure. The PEI will be an opportunity for you to speak about past experiences in depth that you have gone through from a leadership perspective, and just give us a chance to know you in the case or context of doing work previously and what you learned from it, how you operated as a leader, how you were able to demonstrate certain skills. So for the PEI, it's not just a behavioral set of questions. It's really the candidate leading the interviewer through a set of experiences or a particular experience in depth. And it requires you to think through that particular experience very, very thoroughly when actually explaining it to the interviewer. So when you're preparing for the PEI, and again, there's a good amount of information on mckinsey.com/careers about the PEI as well, think through that experience and really take yourself back to what were you thinking? How did you react? What skills did you show in that particular instance as it pertains to the questions that you're going through with the interviewer?
Right. Interesting. Now, of course, in the past year, all of these interviews used to be face-to-face have been in a virtual environment. How has that changed the dynamic for candidates and for McKinsey?
I'm happy to chime in here, and Aaron, please feel free to add. So we have really found virtual recruiting to be an unlock for us. We are able to provide candidates opportunities to connect with consultants globally at a much faster clip. So we're not, waiting for folks to fly in. And so we feel like that has been incredible. And then we obviously hosted all of our interviews virtually this year, which was great too. I think, candidates didn't have to spend time on planes, trains, and automobiles to get to an office. They were able to take interviews from the comfort of their own home. So we have actually seen a lot of positive impacts of the virtual environment. Of course, when it's safe to do so for our consultants and for our candidates, we are really excited to get back to consulting, to campus. But we basically have totally hit our stride with virtual recruiting, and we haven't found it to be a barrier to get to know the class. So it's been really exciting.
Yeah, I would echo all the points.
Go ahead.
Was going to echo all the points that Judith just mentioned. I think treat the experience virtually as though we were on campus. It's hard to make those seemingly organic connections through a Zoom screen, but we want to allow you the chance to ask the questions that are on your mind, connect with consultants, connect with individuals across McKinsey, exactly as if we were on campus. So I would just encourage all candidates to treat recruiting as though we were really there. Virtual recruiting will feel a little bit different for some, but if you're at all concerned, definitely feel free to leverage the knowledge of the second years on campus who just went through this process as well. They're a wealth of knowledge of how to navigate recruiting events, recruiting timelines, those sorts of things in a virtual setting. They're probably very well equipped for that.
And I'm also assuming that you're doing information sessions virtually as well, right?
Yeah, we are. We kind of building on what I said about just the access that you're able to get now virtually, and being able to give you candidate connections earlier, consulting, folks, bringing them into your network more easily. So yeah, we totally are.
Great. Now, Aaron, you had been working at JP Morgan and you did your summer internship in between your 2 years at Wharton at Citi. So you didn't have an internship at McKinsey. I wonder how that changes the recruiting process for someone if you don't land an internship.
Yeah, so I did not recruit for consulting as a first year MBA whatsoever. I came in with a very different idea of where I wanted my career path to go. I recruited for investment banking, had an internship that summer, and decided coming out of that internship that I wanted to make a pivot that I wasn't necessarily originally envisioning. So would I say that my dream job coming into my MBA program was at McKinsey? The answer is not necessarily, only because I wasn't considering consulting. But taking a moment in between my summer internship and full-time recruiting as a second year, thinking through what I really wanted to get out of a career, the skills I wanted to build, the way I wanted to think, the people I wanted to work with, those sorts of things all pointed towards consulting. And it was a mentality shift that I had to go through. And I had to go through case prep and interview prep, like many of you will do as first years, on a much more condensed timeline, since second year full-time recruiting happens a little bit earlier than the summer internship recruiting. But it was the same process. Nothing operated differently. I still connected with folks at McKinsey and got a chance to know the firm. It was just a different process for me because I was not thinking about it as a first year. I had to do that mentality shift coming into full-time recruiting as a second year.
Right. That said, what can an intern expect when he or she joins McKinsey? What kind of jobs do they get, and what's sort of the process of, getting them familiar with the firm and getting them up to speed for a summer work?
Totally. So I'll tell you a little bit of my take. And then, of course, Aaron, we would love to hear about some summers that you've had on your team. So we really treat the summer associate experience as though you're a full-time employee. We really want you to understand, what is it like to work at McKinsey? What is it like to be in a client-serving role? And so we're going to staff you on a study just like any other consultant at the firm. Oftentimes we seamlessly do this, so much so that our clients don't even know who the summer associate is on the team. Of course, before you launch into your study, you'll go through incredible training to help you get up to speed, understand, how do we think through problems. So that lasts about a week. We have all of the business kind of case knowledge to help you understand the client situation that you're heading into, but you will be staffed just as any other, associate at the firm. You'll work in problem-solving sessions. It's truly just like the life of a consultant.
Right. And it's usually a 10 or 12-week gig. What is it?
It's 10 weeks. It's 10 weeks. We have a week of that is training, and then the rest of it is spent, on the ground collaborating with your McKinsey team as well as your client team.
And Judith, if I knock it out of the park, how long will it take me to get that magical phone call or email from McKinsey saying, "Hey, we love you and we want to offer you a full-time job"?
Yeah, we are able to often do that on your very last day, if not your last week. And so one of the beauties of McKinsey is, we have a great feedback culture. We really embrace feedback. So, are you trending towards an offer? And, the majority of folks do get offers. It's a great thing. And so we try to get it out, in that last week so we can spend the last week of your time with us celebrating. But definitely as you're walking out the door, you'll know, will you have an offer to return or not?
Right. Now, I know for a number of years, McKinsey has been very keen on recruiting more women into the consulting ranks, ultimately to feed the funnel to partnership. Give us a little sense of the overall diversity and inclusion efforts at McKinsey these days.
Sure. So to your point, John, we care a lot about women, but we also care a lot of just hiring a diverse talent pool. So we know, and it's not just because, it's the thing to do, it's our moral obligation. And then our research shows that we are able to get to a better answer faster with diversity of thought. So we really, really value this within the organization. As a company, we have partnered with a lot of external organizations to share our knowledge and help our folks. So, we work with Lean In. After everything that happened this summer with George Floyd, we put 10 actions into practice. We know that this is, again, not only a priority for McKinsey, but also for our clients. So we actually have an entire group focused on diversity inclusion work. So bringing really the best of our knowledge and the external world together to help think about how we can kind of tackle this all as one. So those are some of the things that we're doing. One thing that's really interesting that I actually just found out about is that we are looking at all of our people processes within the firm to understand, do we have more bias than we should? How can we create an even more inclusive culture? So this is something that I'm really proud of McKinsey on. I think we're really, leading. We're ahead here, and it's something that we just really, really value at the firm. Erin, I don't know if you want to chat a little bit more about kind of the communities that you're part of or your kind of how you've experienced diversity at the firm.
Absolutely. And you touched on the point of inclusivity and inclusion, Judith. And I think that's so important to remember about diversity and affinity at the firm. It's not just about the representation piece and bringing people in, but in many cases, and certainly in my case, the first folks that I really connected with that mentioned that they wanted to be people who supported me, mentors, sponsors, helped me build that camaraderie and that community sense at the firm, were often folks within affinity groups that I'm an active part of. So McKinsey's Black Network and Glamour LGBTQ Network are two of those that I'm most engaged with. Those individuals and partners, associate partners, and even senior partners inside of those communities made themselves available to me extremely early on. They've consistently been folks who wanted to build me up, and it made the adjustment to the firm as someone who didn't do a summer internship, but just in general, as someone coming in from the start, wanting to grow, wanting to learn those skills, they made that transition and that journey that much easier, and that continues to persist up until right now. Those folks continue to be folks in my corner that I really appreciate.
So, Erin, I'm curious. Like, if I were in New York with you, I'd say, "Hey, let's go for a drink at a bar," and I turn to you and I say, "Hey, McKinsey has this incredible mystique. So many people want to work for it. It's involved in so many important strategic assignments around the world with so many brand name companies. Tell me what most impresses you about the place, what surprised you when you joined it, and what you like most."
Wow, it's such a big question. There's so many ways to take that. But first off, if we're having drinks, it has to be outside. I know it's COVID, but I would love to have a drink, especially because spring is coming. It's hopefully going to be beautiful in New York at some point. But what impressed me the most and what I've been most proud of is the breadth of work that you can do at McKinsey. You do not come in and do one thing, and that's regardless of your background. I came from a financial services background, and I was a little worried that I would get put into that particular arena of continuing to do financial services and really exercising that background. I may do some things in that area, but I've been so happy to explore other areas of interest, things like TMT, consumer retail, and industrials, the sectors that I focus on most closely. Those are the areas that I've been so proud to explore. And I'm so happy to see so many opportunities and so many areas for folks to explore coming into McKinsey, either out of undergrad, but especially for this community coming out of an MBA. What I've been most excited about, when we were traveling, I did like to travel completely selfishly. I like that feeling of being on the ground, immersed with a client or immersed in the team room, and I miss that feeling. I've actually had a chance to travel both domestically and internationally for work as an associate. So that feeling of being in the air or being on the ground with a client really energized me, and I look forward to having that feeling again when we can safely return to that.
Right. Now, what are the different career paths available to McKinsey? How much flexibility is built into the system? Or you join the firm, you get on a treadmill, and it only goes one direction. Give me a sense of the different possibilities.
Totally. Thank goodness it is not that treadmill. So there are three kind of paths, if you will, into the firm. The first is what we call integrative or generalist consultants. It's you come in and you can work across a variety of different industries and functions in all different offices, globally. So that is what most people know about, and it's very common. A second way to come into the firm is into our functional practices. So I have a special place for functions, and I started my career in one of these areas. And essentially, folks are kind of raising their hands saying, I want to do more of this work than not. And they oftentimes have prior work experience in the area. So some of the most common functions that you'll hear about that we actively hire into are marketing and sales, our operations practice, McKinsey implementation. We do a lot of work in risk and corporate finance, and then of course digital. So folks that have spent some time there, they're not going to exclusively do work in those areas, but they may do more of it than not. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, tech profiles, data analytics, those are increasingly more important. So we're hiring folks, like data engineers, data scientists. I'm going to point you in the direction of our website yet again to learn more about those areas. But thankfully, you're not on a treadmill. You're not stuck in one area. And we have a lot of, different ways to come into the firm.
So let's say I'm interested in healthcare as an MBA, and I feel passionate about it. If I interview at McKinsey and I pass the hurdles in front of me and get an offer, is there a real shot at working in the healthcare practice?
Aaron, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this one. I think if you have a demonstrated interest in an area and you're really passionate about something, it's part of the conversation of staffing. Like, I really want to do this, and absolutely, it will certainly play out for you at some point. I think there are so many, like I said before, paths at the firm, as Judith was alluding to as well. You can pursue an industry area that you're really passionate about. You can pursue a functional area that you're really passionate about. That's kind of the combination of things that most people do. Healthcare is one of those areas that's extremely popular at the firm. A lot of folks are very excited and passionate about that one. And there's a lot of work that we do in the healthcare space, but that's just one example of things that you could pursue at the firm. And it's part of that flexibility of finding your way and finding your community at McKinsey that starts with staffing and it starts with interest areas, but it goes on from there. And certainly there's a flexibility element of working with folks that working with your professional development manager who helps you with the staffing process to find those opportunities and make your way in that direction.
And I'll just add that, it's okay if you don't know anything about healthcare. If you just had a great experience and you want to, see what it's like, we have the knowledge and the expertise to really help get you up to speed and build up kind of the business acumen around healthcare. So it's not about you don't have to necessarily have prior knowledge in an area to be able to work on those types of studies. We have all of the kind of training and materials to get you up to speed.
It's very true. I've used maybe all of those resources for the things I'm interested in at the firm.
And even beyond the functional areas of expertise, obviously you have a lot of industry practices. How many practices in all? And they span from what area to what area? I know you have a public service practice, right?
Yeah, so we do work in the private sector, public sector, social sector. If there is an industry out there, we are likely serving it. We do a lot of sustainability work, a ton of digital work. I mean, truly, we're very fortunate that we have clients across all industries and functions.
So there's a lot of opportunities to align one's interests with the firm's work, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the major reasons why a consulting job and one at McKinsey is so appealing to so many people, because there's so many different opportunities. And as Aaron said before, I think there's great value coming out of an MBA program and being able to see close up different industries and different companies within those industries and how they treat problems and the challenges that they're facing, and your role in trying to bring solutions to those challenges. I think that has to be a very gratifying position to have, and one in which you're learning a ton. So, there are some nuts and bolts things like, is there an exact format for a resume and a cover letter at McKinsey? And if there is, Judith, I know it's on the website.
You got it, John. You're a great listener. So first and foremost, please do not submit a cover letter. We don't need cover letters. We do not read cover letters. Please do not waste your time and energy on cover letters. No cover letters. On your resume, I would, think about the things that we are really looking for. that's on the website. We really want to understand when you've worked in collaborative environments, when you've, how have you taken on leadership roles? Have you tried something new? We love kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. Of course, we're going to look at your academics, your test scores, but we truly try to understand kind of your full profile and background. And that's just one piece. The resume is just one piece of the puzzle. We really want to get to know you. We want to understand all of your questions, what's on your mind. And so, of course, the resume is important, but we really, are excited to get to know you even further to really understand kind of who you are and what makes you excited about joining an organization like McKinsey.
If I can add one tangible piece of advice to that as well, don't forget the resources that you have that you can and probably should use for this process, starting with the second-year MBAs who went through the consulting recruiting process, and certainly your career management office, who have seen many folks come through the door at your respective schools and go into consulting. Those are going to be fantastic resources for just getting an eye on the resume and getting that advice of, well, how do I structure this? How do I think through what to put on the page? They're going to be fantastic resources for you. And I know this because they were fantastic resources for me when I was going through the process.
Oh, John, you're on mute.
I was muted, but here I am back again. So, and join the consulting club, I'm going to say, because if you want to do case method interviewing, you'll get plenty of practice and plenty of lessons from people who've already been through it, as Aaron suggests, because those second years who've been through the mill are very helpful to the first year MBAs who are interviewing for internship possibilities, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what are the next steps? How do you best get involved once you're on campus? So all these folks are really eager, otherwise they wouldn't be here and they wouldn't be involved in our pre-MBA networking festival. But are there things that they should be doing now through the summer months before they actually get on campus? Hopefully everyone will be on campus this fall with the vaccinations going out there and things starting to loosen up a bit. What should they be doing now? If I want to really, immerse myself in McKinsey, if McKinsey is my dream job, take me through hand by hand what I need to be thinking about and doing over these next few months, even before I get to my campus.
Sure. Please chime in, Aaron. But you should start thinking about what excites you about joining consulting. What kind of things would you be interested in? What are questions that are top of mind for you? Truly, I do think the consulting club is a great way to learn more about McKinsey. Thinking about, what experiences do you have that lend themselves well to McKinsey? So those are the sorts of things that I would consider doing. And then once we do hit campus, whether it's in person or virtually, we will be there. And just really getting to know us well. So spending time, you'll have a staffed resource. We were very fortunate that Aaron was able to do that for us this year. Ask them your questions. We want to hear them all. And so those are the sorts of things that I would consider doing. I think also to highlight, you're about to enter your MBA program. It's going to be fast and furious. Take some time, to enjoy yourself, get to know your class. It's not just about, landing your dream job. It's also about the network that you're about to join. So I would, spend time getting to know your incoming class, and also just taking some time before the MBA to, prep.
Would echo all of those statements, would add on, certainly take time to relax and just have a breather before jumping straight into recruiting. It will be hectic once it starts. So find that time to just take a breather and enjoy the journey as opposed to just the end goal. Certainly if you have time take a look at your resume and take a look at your experiences. Start to think through how you might want to compile a resume. That might take time as you're in recruiting, and you might be able to just get ahead of that a little bit in advance. Would also suggest taking a look at any of these sort of get to know us early programs that the firms might offer. McKinsey, for example, has McKinsey Early Access, which will provide some sort of early insights into life at McKinsey, working at McKinsey, and give you a bit of a sense of what McKinsey really looks like, even before hitting the ground on campus. So take a look at that program and just get a sense of what the firms look like, who they are, who we are, even before you hit campus. There are opportunities to do so.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate, McKinsey Early Access is an incredible way to get to know the firm, both the types of functions that we're working and connecting with our consultants early. So highly recommend that you do that. We are about to launch the marketing, and the deadline is on May 13th. So look out for more there. We're also really excited this year to launch a diversity pre-MBA program called Inspire. So encourage folks with a diverse background to apply to that program as well.
Great. Well, listen, it's been a joy. Erin, thank you very much. Judith, thank you. Thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective. And for all of you out there, I hope this is really helpful. Of course, the big event will be coming up in May, and McKinsey will have one of its most popular sessions. It's always true. McKinsey is more often than not the single most popular webinar we have. And when we did it in person, and McKinsey would actually have people in for lunch, which is really special, it would always be oversubscribed. So we're really looking forward to that session. Hey, thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thanks for having us, John.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye-bye.